दिल्ली रे बीजेडी संसद दलर प्रेसमिट इसी को भेटा पर संसद दलर प्रेसमिट निर्वाचन में अनियमितता अभियोग आणला बीजेडी जातीय निर्वाचन कमिशन को भेटी फेराद है बीजेडी टीम साधारण निर्वाचन में व्यापक भोट जालियाती अभियोग
any aspersion on the election commission, but basically to tell them that there is a need to get more assurance. They need to give more assurance to the people of the state and people of the country at large on the election process itself, the machines involved, the manual processes involved. There are three issues on which we have flagged in the letter petition. The first one is the difference in the total votes polled in a booth and the total votes counted from the same EVM. I'll just repeat. It is the difference in the total votes polled in a particular booth using the EVM and the total number of votes finally counted from the same EVM. Now what we found that the form 17C, which is filled up at the time of voting, is given by the presiding officer at the closure of the polls, and then form 20 is filled up by the returning officer while counting. What we found is, there are some illustrations that we have given here from the data that was already available to the party and to some of their candidates. Data across all the 38,000 odd booths in the state was not available to us. Now what we have found, and is given in this petition, a copy of which will be shared with you in annexure, is that in one booth, for example, booth number 57 of 84 Fulbani Scheduled Tribe AC, under Kandhamal PC parliamentary constituency, this difference is 682 in one booth. In booth number 165 and booth number 219 of Talsara AC under Sundargarh PC, this difference is 660 and 784. I can go on, but you can see it in the annexure. We'll share it with you. These are just some of the illustrations based on the data that we had. So in order to make a kind of pan-state analysis, our candidates, in some cases, are representatives of the party, made representations to the returning officers to furnish them copy of the Form 17C Part 1 and 2 because they had not collected it at that time. We have also furnished this information to the Election Commission that we were deprived, we were not furnished the data as yet. That is, Form 17C Part 1 would indicate the number of people who have polled, who have reached the booth for polling, and 17C Part 2 would indicate the number of votes that was counted. Now, this variation raises questions about the integrity of the whole process. How is this possible? Especially when EVMs are used, we expected that these discrepancies would probably lessen or would probably not be there at all compared to the manual process when we were doing. But when these discrepancies are as high as 784 out of 600 and 660, you see in a polling booth, the number of people who vote is probably 1,000. Now, if there is such a huge difference, then it raises alarms, and that is what we have done today. The discrepancy in the cases at single booth level, if it is aggregated for all the booths in a constituency, it could probably impact the result or influence the final result of the constituency. Why we couldn't do it? Because we don't have the data, and that is why we had asked the Election Commission, the returning officers. Most of the returning officers refer to this Chief Electoral Officer for clarification. We have indicated this to the Election Commission of India also today, requesting to give an instruction to share this data with the people, with our people who have applied certified copies of the same, because it's a serious issue. And under Rule 93.2, which is what we indicated today to the Election Commission as well, of the conduct of election rules, this data should be available, or these papers, 17C Part 1 and Part 2, should be available to anyone from the public on payment of a fee. And when our candidates have also applied, it is actually almost serious if it is not furnished to us. The second issue that we have mentioned in the petition today is relating to the number of people who have voted. You see, Odisha had seen simultaneous elections in 2004, 2009, 2014, 2019, and this year, 2024. We made an analysis of the difference in the votes poll as indicated by the Election Commission from time to time till the closure of the polls and the number of votes that were finally counted. Earlier, during all these years, this difference used to be maximum of 2%, 0 to 2%. But what we see, this is the first time in the history of Odisha elections. First time in the history of Odisha elections, and perhaps also in the country, that the reported voting percentage at the close of poll on the polling day and the final voting percentage after the end of poll reported by the ECI after 2 days saw a difference ranging from 15% to 30% in 50 assembly constituencies out of 147. In 38 assembly constituencies, this variation was 15 to 20%. In 10 assembly constituencies, this variation was from 20 to 25%. And in two assembly segments, Kantamal and Keonjhar, the variation was the highest. In Kantamal, it was 28.69%, and in Keonjhar, it was 30.64%. This is compared to the 5 p.m. on the voting day figure that is reported by the Election Commission. But you know, at 11:45, they also report another figure for the people who probably could have been standing in a queue. So we compared that figure, and that figure, even the difference in the earlier years was about 1%. In these two constituencies, we found this difference to be exceeding 10%. In balance 97 assembly constituencies, the difference ranges from 3% to 15%. So our question to the Election Commission, for which we requested them to clarify this to us, is that in Keonjhar AC, from where the present Chief Minister of Odisha, Sri Mohan Charan Majhi, was contesting, this difference was 30.64% between 5 p.m. and the counting day. Now, if you take 11:45 p.m. as the cutoff time to take care of the people who are probably standing in the queue to vote and figures getting reported later, still the difference was 10%. So this, we pleaded to the Election Commission that this requires serious analysis and inquiry as to how this much of discrepancy could arise, particularly when the modes of communication, whether electronic, to WhatsApp or to telephone, internet, services is actually increasing. The quality of communication is actually improving in the country and not deteriorating. So in the earlier elections, when this difference used to be in the region of 0 to 2%, how could it reach as high as 10%?
अधिक आलोचना करबा ए संदर्भ में आशुतोष राउत दिल्ली ब्यूरो चीफ आम सहित लाइव रे जोड़ी होती। आशुतोष, जानवा चाहिए को कथा सामना को आने को चेष्टा करिछि बीजेडी एवं जातीय निर्वाचन कमिशन को केमती अवगत करागला, केमती को जगह भोट जालियाती, व्यापक अनियमितता साधारण निर्वाचन रे, ए पूरा कथा को लेकिन बीजेडी प्रेसमिट माध्यम जो कथा सामना को आइला तार गुरुत्व केमती बुझा जाई पारे?
देखो प्रियरंजन, आज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन क्लब ठारे गोटे बहुत बड़ प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस रे आमे कहि परिबा बिजू जनता तरफरु ये प्रेस रिलीज तांकर जो रही जो मेमोरेंडम से देइछंती माननीय इलेक्शन कमिशन ऑफ इंडिया को, से माने तीनोटी प्रश्न उठेइछंती जे ईवीएम मशीन रे जेतिकी भोट गोटे बूथ रे अधिकांश बूथ रो से कथा कहिछंती, जोथरे कि से कहिछंती जेतिकी भोट पोलिंग हेइची काउंटिंग हेला बेलू 25 रु 30% भोट अधिका हेइची, कौ जगार 10% भोट अधिका हेइची, कौ जगार 25 एवं 30% भोट अधिका हेइची। सेमानकर कहवा कथा जो ए भूल मैन रो हो बा मेसिन रो हो जो डिस्क्रिपेंसीज आसीची सेटार तदंत करा जाऊ बोली नवीन पट्टनायक कहवा कथा। एवं जदि जो भली भाव ईवीएम उपरे भरोसा जो लोकंकर रही ସେଇଟା ଉପରେ କାयମ ରହିବା କଥା କିଛିଟା କ୍ଲାରିଫିକେସन ବିଜୁ जनता दल निश्चित भाव में आज इलेक्शन कमिशन ऑफ इंडिया को भेटिछंती एवं 7 जन जाक राज्यसभा एमपी एवं पूर्वतन एमपी राज्यसभा अमर पट्टनायक जी की प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस को संबोधन करथिले तांकर कहिबा कथा अधिकांश जगह केउझर डिस्ट्रिक्ट कथा से कहिले मयूरभंज डिस्ट्रिक्ट कथा कहिले सेकड़े कोरापुट डिस्ट्रिक्ट कथा कहिले से माने कहिले 17 फॉर्म हो बा तांकर एजेंट मानक ठारू जो भली भाव में डाटा एवं इलेक्शन कमिशन रो जो डाटा सेगुड़ी को सब एनालाइज कराइकिरी तांकर जेतेबेले संदेह हैला किछिटा गोटे डिस्क्रिपेंसीज रहिछि जेमती गोटे जगह मु कहली भोट गोटे पर्टिकुलर संख्या रहिछि काउंटिंग गोटे पर्टिकुलर संख्यार भोट होती तापर आउ गोटे कथा कही किछिटा गोटे पार्लियामेंटारी कन्स्टिट्युएंसी रे भोट जी टोटाल पोल होती एवं असेंबली यूनिट रे जो जितेबाला भोटा काउंट करा जाइछि सेतिरे मध्य 10 रु 30% डिस्क्रिपेंसीज रही एभली भाव में सी कंधमाल कथा कही जाजपुर पार्लियामेंटारी कन्स्टिट्युएंसी कथा कही एवं केउझर कथा कही एवं जो भली भाव में डिस्क्रिपेंस रही तार गोटे प्रॉपर इनक्वारी करा जाऊ एवं अमर पट्टनायक कहवा कथा जे निश्चित भाव में इलेक्शन कमिशन तांकु प्रॉमिस करिसेंती जे एटा को से गुरुत्वर सहित देखिबे एवं किछिटा क्षेत्र से कहिसेंती ओडिसा रे किछि जगह रे हाईएस्ट डिफरेंस इन वोट्स जोटा रही सेटा जेतेबेले रही 30% किंतु एटा 2% रु अधिका केबे जाई नथिला विनिंग डिफरेंस कथा जदि आम कहवा 2% भोट विनिंग परसेंटेज केबे नथिला ऊपर को जाई नथिला किंतु एथर विनिंग परसेंटेज किछिटा जगह रे 30% रही एवं तांकर मध्य कहवा कथा ये सबगुड़ी को भूल कहार ईवीएम उपरे जो लोकंकर विश्वसनीयता जाउची ताकू सबू पुणी फेरई आनिबा पई कहवा कथा पूर्वतन मुख्यमंत्री मान्यवर एवं बिजु जनता दल सुप्रीमो सीए तांकर बीजेडी रो समस्त राज्यसभा एमपी एवं पूर्वतन एमपी राज्यसभा अमर पट्टनायक को पठाई से माने आज इलेक्शन कमिशन पाखक 3:30 बेले भेटिले तापर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन क्लब रे गोटे बहुत बड़ प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस रे ये कथा रखले तांकु जेतेबेले पचरा हला आपण माने कोन अछंती ऑपोजिशन संगे रे ईवीएम विरुद्ध रे से माने अमर पट्टनायक कहवा कथा आमे से विषय रे वर्तमान कोनोसी स्टैंड नेइनु किंतु आमे चाहूचु यही जो मैन रो गलती हो बा मेसीन रो गलती हो ईवीएम मेसीन रो गलती हो बा मनुष्यकृत हो एगुड़िक जदि लोकों सम्मुखें जो जो कंप्लेन गुड़िक बिजु जनता दल किसी कन्स्टिट्युएंसी कन्स्टिट्युएंसी ना नहीं डिफरेंस देखते कंप्लीट रिसर्च डाटा जितेबाला देते ता उपरे जदि गुरुत्व दे इलेक्शन कमिशन से समस्त समस्या
तरफ केमती प्रतिश्रुति केमती ए कथा को जहाँ बीजेडी अभियोग हिसाब से सामना को आनी एवं इसी को अवगत कराई इसी तरफ केमती प्रतिश्रुति ए घटना को केमती आगामी समय इसी गुरुत्वर सहित नब
कम होउची सेटा आहुरी कम हबो बोली अमर पट्टनायक कहवा कथा से माने आशावादी अच्छी जो 7 जन जाक एमपी से सस्मित पात्र हुंतु सुलता देव हुंतु बा सामंतराय हुंतु बा सुभाषिष खुंटिया हुंतु से माने समस्त आशावादी अच्छी मुन्ना खां हुंतु से माने समस्त निरंजन बिशी हुंतु से माने समस्त आशावादी अच्छी जे इलेक्शन कमिशन ठीक समय रे ठीक फैसला नेबे एवं दलीय नेता नवीन पट्टनायक निर्देश क्रमे से माने जो आसी एठारे ईवीएम रो विश्वसनीयता फेरे आनिबा पई जो प्रचेष्टा करिसेंती जो बली भाव में किछिटा डिफरेंस जना पड़ुची लोकों मन रे जो संदेह रही जोटा कि दल तरफ रिसर्च करा जाइछि अलग अलग डाटा एवं एजेंट मानक ठारू एवं इलेक्शन कमिशन डाटा आनी सेटा बहुत जल्दी क्लारिफिकेशन मिलिबो बोली बिजु जनता दल आशा व्यक्त करिसेंती।
धन्यवाद आशुतोष जोड़ी होते लाइव रे थिले आशुतोष राउत दिल्ली ब्यूरो चीफ ए संपर्क में सविशेष आम सहित आलोचना करुଥିଲେ।